Welcome to the Retailers series. I am here in the heart of Milan where GMT, one of the eminent watch retailers in the world, have been early vouching for independent watchmakers. In the first episode, Giorgio Corvo, third generation of the family, is going to explain to us what is the philosophy behind Italian culture and style when it comes to watchmaking. Jacopo, we're in the heart of Milan. You were born and raised in the watch industry, but can you explain to me why watches has always been a huge part of the Italian culture? It's part of the philosophy of style and culture, but it's mesmerizing how such a tiny country compared to the rest of the world has played such a big role in the watch industry.
Well, first of all, Italians have always been lovers of nice objects. That's the base. Then what happened is that in the 70s, during the quartz crisis, some Italian distributors, such as my grandfather that relaunched the Reverso with Jaeger-LeCoultre, or the Italian AP distributor that asked the AP to create something, luxury sport watch in steel. Well, the first series was in white gold, but then, the idea was to do like a sport chic. They were predecessors.
Visionnaire.
Exactly. Then the creation of the Rolex collecting culture as we know it today was born in Italy at the end of 80s. In the 90s, there was the big relaunch of Panerai.
With the Paneristi.
Italians have always been eager collectors. And it is true that until the end of 90s or beginning of 2000s, they were saying that if a watch sells well in Italy, it will sell well all over the world.
It's a sign of success.
We were connoisseurs, for sure, avant-garde, and for sure lovers of what is beautiful.
There was a real appetite for, yes, beauty, but for things that were also different, because you mentioned, and the original AP distributors said that, well, if Italians adopted it, it meant that it was going to be a big success worldwide. But do you think it goes even further than just the love of beauty, the appetite for nice things and being different? There is also a money factor to it, because watches, even back in the days, were a luxury expensive.
Absolutely. As I said, the Rolex movement, so how Rolex started to be a collectible started at the end of 80s, thanks to a bunch of people, and collectors started to realize that some of their watches were worth much more than what they paid.
It could be an asset.
It could be an asset, absolutely.
And when you look at auction today, even though the market has changed, you have a lot of Italians inside auction rooms. For the secondary market as well, and it's still a very big culture and a very big community.
It's absolutely true. Italians have always been key players in pre-owned and not only watch collecting, but as you said, collecting watches as assets, and they still are today. There are still some collectors in Italy are still considered the biggest collectors in the world, and they're not just collectors. They buy, they sell, they trade. But of course, they accumulate as well. You know very well Auro, for example.
Of course, Auro Montanari, who's one of the most elegant and knowledgeable men about the watch industry.
Absolutely.
But what's also very interesting, if we go back to the essence of the art of collecting and how Italian and how the Italian market are very fond of watches, you're the living proof that this market also has evolved in terms of taste, because obviously the biggest success that made those watches to some extent very famous, you were mentioning Panerai, you were mentioning the Reverso, you were mentioning the AP, but also the Rolex market. Now we're talking about independence and how Italians have grown into learning and educating themselves into independent watchmakers. And that's a very interesting and genuine evolution of a market that's completely changed in the last 30 years.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pretty sure that a certain number of Italian collectors approached independent watchmaking because of the resale value or future value, starting with FP Journe, and then it became a little bit more popular to say, oh, independent watch brands, they are the assets of the future. I have to collect, I have to put them in the bank. Our job today is also to select our customers and to really understand who's passionate and who's purchasing and collecting only for that speculative
Out
or
of
resale value.
investment or out of passion?
Absolutely.
But what about, I mean, I guess the last question is then Italian crisis. That's something the world has been hearing, and we know how Italy can be, especially with the past government, pretty unstable.
Absolutely.
But how did that affect the Italian market when it comes to watchmaking? Full disclosure.
But listen, the Italian market is huge. It's still in the top 10 despite all the crises and all the ups and downs with governments and politics. I do think that to a certain extent, for traditional brands that needs to move a lot of numbers, it can be, moments can fluctuate, as well as currencies, as well as crypto, as we say, as we see, etc., etc. For independent watchmaking, I mean, they produce such a small amount of watches that it's a bit more different to say or to think that there will be a slowdown or a crisis because of political instabilities or because the market is crashing, etc.
Yeah, we always hear journalists, is their fault.
Of course, I mean, the question is different. I mean, we really have to separate the two words. I mean, independent watchmaking is the niche of the... Watchmaking is already niche compared to fashion, compared to cars.
And yet, watches have now become the hot topic after real estate, wine, art.
Absolutely.
Now everybody talks about watches because it's more of a social topic rather than a niche conversation.
But see, if you buy wine for investment, if you buy stocks, you have them there, you know? Virtual reality, basically. When you buy a watch, you put it on your wrist. You can wear it for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. If you want to sell it one day, you are lucky to get the money that you paid. But if you are lucky enough to have one of the rare pieces that that acquires value throughout the years, of course it's a plus, you know. But I don't really see the kind of watchmaking I'm into as an asset, honestly. I think that the primary word is still passion, and that's why, again, we still need to really select whom we are giving the watches to.
So looking at the evolution of the watch culture as being part of an asset to the country and to what watch collectors are in the world, GMT and your family history has vouched and educated this market over the last decades from the start of your grandfather.
Well, it's exactly this. I think what we did, so transitioning from a purely distributor to distributor and retailer, was exactly for this purpose. So to understand the needs of the clientele and the collectors, and to be able to help them more understanding the world of independent watchmaking, always keeping in mind the philosophy of GMT, which is great masters of time. So it's not only the watch, it's the people behind.
And perpetrating the values of what the real education on what watchmaking is about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ele.